I just talking about, chain of command and how shit happens. The owner of the Flint Firebirds junior hockey team has apologized for firing his coaching staff over the weekend, saying he made an irresponsible mistake. Now, this is what I want to say. I want to backtrack. I believe that if he didn't get the pressure and the whole team walking out and boycotting the decision of the ownership, that there's no way he would have made that statement.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right, Frank. He's a gentleman from Sweden. He bought the team. He brought his 17-year-old son over to play on the team. I'm not suggesting that's the only reason he bought it. But when a team beats a team from Oshawa...
I don't know for sure, but it could be.
Yeah, well, it could be. And I think David Branch handled it magnificently. And it's too bad that I don't know Mr. Nielsen, so I don't want to get into his...
Well, what I'm just trying to tell you is I don't know him, and I would not judge him in any way. But he's the owner, and he has the right to fire and hire. You know what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
And I do not agree with the league allowing the players to walk out. Like, what happens? How do you own a team? How do you manage a team? Why would you buy a team if you have no control of the money that you've invested in the team? He fired them based on a huge, unsuccessful amount of games. They were losing every game, right? And he was not happy with the coaching staff.
Yeah, and it was interpreted as he was not happy with the way the coaching staff was handling his son. That may or may not have been true, but that's the one thing, the most difficult situation in Flint was the 17-year-old son who had to have the burden of his father meddling in their affairs. And we don't know, the guy who's the coach...
But the team was losing, either way, right?
And
the original firing was that the coaching staff was not allowing the team to win because, not on purpose, but their concept of coaching or their style of coaching was not making the team win.
Well, and that's all true, Frank, as long as it's not being a factor of how much ice time your son's getting. And if that's the case, you know nothing. And you made a bad choice. But if you had other reasons and they were valid ones, that's fine. And if the team walked out, that's fine too. You give them 12 hours to walk back. And if they don't walk back, you replace them. And that it never came to that.
Well, my problem is that he was intimidated and he was pushed into reversing his decision. And I'm saying whether his decision was correct or incorrect, he's the owner. When it's your fucking money, when it's your ass on the line, you have that luxury to fire or hire.
Yep. No, I agree.
And I just don't think that the league
gave up all his options. He had an option to say, gentlemen, I have fired the coach. If you don't want to stay here, I'm going to give you 12 hours to make up your mind. I'll meet you at noon. And if they come in at noon and say we're leaving, then they leave. He then has to go to Dave Branch and say, hey, I need a new team. I know where you're coming from, Frank. He shouldn't be influenced by 20 players saying we're walking out.
Or blackmailed. I mean, what I'm saying, whether it was right or wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do not know the dark, secret-seated particulars of exactly what happened. I'm just making a general point. He is the owner. It is his right. It is his luxury, since it's his money and it's his ass on the line, right?
Yeah.
Or hire people. End of story.
You got $5 or $6 million involved at least.
If the rules were like that when George Steinbrenner, he fired, hired, threw people out. He would have lasted in baseball, but he did. But he built probably one of the biggest brands in the world, in the universe.
Yeah, and you knew who the boss was. He made some decisions that weren't, but none of them were ever influenced by his family. And that's where you get involved. You know this, Frank. If there's a family person working for you.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I've known other people who have bought hockey teams to support their kids' play, and I've told them that's a mistake. If he's going to make it, he's got to make it on his own And, because you have the money, you don't buy a hockey team to support, you don't buy your kid a fucking hockey team because you want him to be a hockey player.
that's putting the cart before the horse.
No, but I'm just saying, but I don't care about that. I really don't. What bothered me about the whole story was he fired his coaching staff, and if you take a look, they were not winning. They were not winning every game. They were losing. They had one of the worst starts in the history of the team, from what I read.
Yep, I heard that too. And they won their most recent game on Sunday against Oshawa, which was a misfortune because it made it look like he was firing him over the ice time that his son got. But as I looked at it, the son got 16 minutes. That's a lot of ice time for a 17-year-old in the AHL.
That's a lot of ice time for anybody.
I think the coach was trying to accommodate him, but the coach loses a lot of his power when he does what the owner tells him.
Well, I heard that he fired the coaching staff because they were not winning. It had nothing to do with the treatment of his son, the respect that they had, or whatever. But the whole team boycotted the ownership. And I think they were in a business form, okay? Completely wrong. Emotionally, whatever. That's fine. But business is business. The guy owns the team. He's going to make it. It's his team. And I think that he got bullied into apologizing and backtracking his decision.
And you know what they did, Frank, I think? They said, look what you're doing to our reputation as a development league. They compete with the Division I schools in the U.S. with scholarships throughout. And if a parent is making up his mind and asks Dave Branch, well, could my son be drafted by Flint? Yes, he could. Well, then don't draft him. He's going to go to college. And that would be a big problem for Dave. And he presented that, I'm sure, to the owner and say, it's going to be a big problem for you doing what you've just done. You've got to find a better way of disposing of your coach, and this is not the right time. And I think
I disagree on that one. I think that an owner, when he wants to do something, he makes it do. It's just like they fired Randy Carlisle. You know what I mean? They don't bother coming to the meeting, or when they fire anybody. I mean, you get fired. You go. I've known people who work for companies for 28 years, 30 fucking years. They get fired, and then they're walked out. They're walked out with the pictures or the fucking plant that was in their office, and they get walked out by security. That's what happens when you're fired.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm just saying, whether the owner was right or wrong, morally, it's his right to fire whoever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, I think Branch convinced him that wasn't the case.
Well, I think that they bullied him, and he took a lot of negativity in the press, and the players on the Sunday all handed in their jerseys and walked out. So now you got two choices. You want to show people that you're a man of your word and you mean what you say and you say what you mean. You get another team on the ice.